And good afternoon. It is the American Scousers podcast TV post-match reaction to Liverpool 2, Newcastle 0. I'm joined by Jamie, who seems to be wearing summer clothes in the middle of February, which is a good sign, hopefully. What did you think of the game, Jamie?
Oh, mate, I know the headlines are going to be taken by the goalkeeping decision, but I thought we performed really well, and even if it had stayed 11-11, I think we had enough resilience there to put in a good performance and get the win anyway.
It seems to me that we probably played less like we had the extra man after Nick Pope went off than before. We looked like we had an extra player before he got sent off in our counter attacks. But very often, the team that loses the man ups their game. Like, they raise their game immensely, so it becomes more difficult to play against them. Do you think that was the case here, or did we literally just say, we have this one, let's just see the game out?
No, absolutely. I mean, a bit of column A, a bit of column B, but absolutely fair play to Newcastle, and the fans got behind them, and clearly Eddie Howe had a word with them, and they put in a good showing of themselves, and made it hard work for us. But we definitely did take the foot off the gas a wee bit, and that's probably due to the two early goals. But to a man, we performed really well.
Let's talk about those goals, though, because they were both quite good goals. When we turn it on, we're still capable of creating that magic, aren't we?
Yeah, it's in stark contrast to what we've been used to this past couple of weeks. So yeah, pleasure to see.
My pre-match prediction was, all three forwards will get a goal. Salah tried his best, but it was really nice to see the two new guys get on the score sheet, and in such amazing fashion. Almost, it was like magical old school goals, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. And to be fair, we probably could have had a couple more. Definitely, Andy Bravo could have had one as well. So if we're being picky and choosy, we could have put three or four past them. We could have bided our time a bit more and really turned the screw on them. But 2-0, can't complain.
We're going to be joined by the boss man himself, Timuchin. Timuchin, how did you see the game?
I know, man. It was, if you told us, heck, we talked before the game, right? 2-0, I'll take it. For a second, we thought you were like Nostradamus or something like that. We were like, what the hell is going on? But I don't know, like Jamie was just saying, I just caught the end of it, but I agree totally. It could have been easier, not only because of like scoring more goals, but I felt like we could have controlled the game better and made them run around instead of, kind of like us running around in defense, because defending is still running around, like shifting from side to side. I kind of expected us to do that more, kind of wear him down, and then Jota comes in and, with Bobby gets some additional goals towards the end of the game. I thought we kind of made it harder on ourselves than we had to. But hey, we talked about it before, right? It's a tough place to play, even when you're in good form. The team that doesn't concede a lot of goals, 2-0 away win. Huge win. It's almost like a 6-point game. It's hard to complain, but there are things to complain about. That's a different story.
Jamie, my thought during the game was, and pre-match we talked about this, is that I didn't like the idea of Jota and Firmino starting so early, coming back from their injuries. But it seemed to me that when they did come on the field, whatever rhythm we had was sort of disrupted while they found their feet, wasn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Jota was struggling for form even before the injury, but on a better day, he could have bagged three, could have got himself a hat trick there in the 20 minutes that he was on. So good to get minutes in his legs, and I'm sure he'll be quite critical of himself. That header looked like a gilt-edged chance. If that was Jota last season or in any sort of semblance of form, he puts that in the back of the net and wails off celebrating. But yeah, Bobby himself looked a bit out of it. A couple of poor decisions, trying to be too silky, back heels in our own half and things like that, giving the ball away. So yeah, good to get them back, but definitely off the bench, we could afford a few of their mistakes, getting them back into form.
Jamie, before we let you go, because you know you're in a hurry today to soak up the rays of that sun that looks much warmer than ours. My thermostat is at 86 right now. We talked about Matip out for Virgil. Despite the clean sheet, do you think that was the right decision still, or was he looking a little bit shaky there at times?
I mean, look, it is. I know we've got all the time in the world to be critical. It was good to get him back, and again, minutes in the legs in the build up to Madrid. Who knows what would have happened had we have had him on the bench? So yeah, I'm trying to be positive and looking forward to the big game on Tuesday now. So yeah, I mean, Matip's good at bringing the ball out of the back. Virgil's just a bit more assured, and you've got that sort of reliability just by him being there. So great to have the big man back, and we can complain all we want now.
Okay, Jamie, it was great to hear from you. Enjoy the jealousy that I have right now and the seething envy. Enjoy the rays of that sun, and we'll hopefully see you back on Thursday for the podcast. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. At least we can smile after this post-match.
100%. Up the Reds, lads. Take care.
Talk to you later. And now we're going to be joined by Trevor, who's going to join us when I click the right button. But I'm going to go to you, Tamuch, before we go to Trevor.
Dude, Trevor's doing his best Alex impression, by the way.
He's doing a very good Alex impression. But the question I have is, Alisson saved their hide a few times in that game. But is that what we really should be expecting him to do, or was that an out-of-the-skin performance on his part?
I thought it was pretty okay. Like the 1v1, like earlier in the game that he's kind of saves, keeps us in the game. You're almost used to that, and let's face it, the way we play with the high line and stuff, you kind of need that from your goalie once or twice a game to bail you out. But the difference is not everybody gets that red cards for Pope today. Any other goalie does not create that situation for Pope to get the red card, and I think that's what separates Ali. I mean, I think he's, definitely in the conversation anyway, but I mean, that's the aspect of that, his game in that sense, I think makes him the best, because not a lot of goalies are going to put that ball on a dime there. We've seen it before. It comes as normal, but not a lot of goalies are going to do that. I think not only he saved us in goal, like doing his normal gig, he also like created that red card, which kind of at the time put the game away in a sense.
Trevor, we talked about the midfield before the game. I liked Bajcetic and Henderson. I thought they both gave us energy, if not necessarily intelligence on the ball, but they definitely kept Newcastle honest. But for me, am I right or am I wrong that Fabinho yet again played down, just to cast one shadow over the game, and that it really is looking like we need a replacement for him sooner rather than later in that spot?
Yeah, and if Bajcetic is that guy going forward, that's great. But he's definitely, I'd like to say he's in his own head, because you saw with every single tackle that he went in for, he was immediately looking up at the ref. He was always trying to like chirp at somebody. There's zero confidence in him, despite the fact that he has two players around him playing with the utmost confidence over these past couple weeks, and that is concerning on his front. But we're able to weather that today.
Tamuch, we talked about this before on the morning podcast about, there's a time for every player, amateur or professional, where the speed of the game is just a fraction too much for you. Do you think Fabinho is heading at that point? Is he having that realization that he's maybe not as quick as he used to be?
I don't know if it's something physical to me, because, within 6 months, you don't go back. As somebody who's regressed physically, it doesn't happen in 6 months. It's a lot more gradual than that. I feel like with him, it's partially mental, where he kind of like doesn't want to make a mistake. So some of those passes that he would do, like a one time without even looking, he kind of like controls the ball and, then gets the pressure on him, then kind of like screws up or has to force the pass and stuff. And I think that makes him look worse in a way. I think because he's never been the fastest dude, and he's never been really fast on the ball, but he was fast to the tackle to be able to stop, the other team from countering and stuff like that. And he was doing those one-time passes during build-up to kind of like break down through the pressure. I just don't think he's doing that as much now.
Just a nice and timely message from Bickler there, but Bickler was saying during the game on the Discord channel that everybody should be on, and that the Newcastle were finding spaces in midfield to hurt us on their attacks. I don't believe they had more than 3 shots on target. Maybe it was 4 in the end. But we were eventually pushing them into areas they don't like to be. But Trevor, with a man advantage, is that something that we do have to look at, that a team with 10 players was still able to find space in our midfield?
Yeah, that's very disconcerting. And as we were all talking about on that Discord that you should 100% be part of if you are watching this, it was something where we're like, all right, you got to kind of like press things. You got to not in press in terms of our press, but kind of just make them have to react to something. And it was kind of just slow. And there was just methodical pacing to things. And it allowed them to kind of get out of their shell and go like, okay, if they're just going to give us all this space to work with, let's just try some shit. And thankfully, none of it worked. But in another day, that could have definitely been something where there was just 2 counters in like 2 minutes and it was 2-2, and then we would all be just sitting here scratching our heads at what the hell just happened.
Tamuchin, another Bickler reference, because he did make a good point about Trent. You made that great pass for the Gakpo goal. And Bickler said on the Discord channel, that's you kind of take the defensive lapses because of that kind of stuff that he is, he's well capable of on a consistent basis. But as a fellow elder statesman of following Liverpool, watching him today and listen and bearing in mind what Bickler said, he reminded me a lot of Emlyn Hughes, in that Emlyn Hughes was called Crazy Horse because of his forward runs and his attacking marauding, but I don't ever recall him being called a great defender. So are we kind of, as Liverpool fans, should we just be kind of taking Trent for what he is rather than hoping he can be something we want him to be?
Yeah, because I don't think the latter is coming. I mean, we talked about this, I think, on the podcast or one of the morning shows one day where, I mean, he's a good 1v1 defender, right? Like, as a defender, he can defend. In most cases, he can. I mean, obviously, you have like St. Maximin or somebody like that, is a different story. But his defensive issues usually come from lack of awareness, where people are and things like that. That's where, or like kind of like getting caught ball watching and things like that. And when you're like really young, you're like, hey, you're gonna learn those. The game is gonna get slower. You're gonna kind of like cover those. And he did those today. I mean, like, you gotta give him credit. There were a couple of times where a regular Trent would let that ball run between him and the center back towards the corner to be crossed in, and he kind of sensed that and came over. But at this age, that awareness, like Bickler's talking about, is just not going to get a whole lot better. I think maybe with experience over years can get a tad better, but he's never going to be, I mean, 10 years from now, we're never going to be like, man, what a defender he became. I don't think we're ever saying that. But at the same time, there have been a lot of backs in history who are playing right back, left back, and really their strength was more like in the attacking side more than the defensive side. And you kind of had to live with it because they were giving you something that nobody else, no other left back or no other right back could give. So I think that's where we're at right now. I think Bickler is right in that sense. You got to kind of say, hey, this is the guy's strength. But then at the same time, you got to figure out how to cover up for that. And yes, there's going to be times where, and I'm not talking about, whenever we talk about Trent's defending, everybody goes ape shit and they're like, oh, you're supposed to push up. We're not talking about him pushing up and not being back or anything. We're talking about him like falling asleep, letting a runner behind him, or, letting the header in the back post and stuff like that. You're almost going to have to live with those, and those are going to happen. As long as he's productive pushing forward, I think that cancels each other out and then some. But the issue becomes when he's not giving you anything moving forward and attacking and defensively, because now you got nothing.
For both of you, but just kind of on that point, Again, as elder statesmen, I remember when I grew up playing.
Stop saying that.
Okay, so you're the elder statesman, then, and
Well,
the playboy.
That made it so much better.
But I remember when I grew up playing, we learned man marking. Everything was man-to-man marking. Zonal was still kind of a new fad, but all of the kids these days only learn zonal defending. It's all flat back four, back three stuff. Is it something that we're just going to have to accept for modern young players? Is that they're not going to have that awareness because they're not used to marking players in general? They're more used to marking space. Or is it something that we can maybe put on the coaching staff at the academies to say, you know, we need to be teaching our players that, you know, if you're at the back post, look behind you because that's where the danger is. It's not where the ball is. And then if so, does that mean if that's not something that we're going to talk, is it something we're going to have to recruit? Trevor.
Trevor froze on us.
I think Trevor's Wild Irish Rose. His camera is as if drank the Wild Irish Rose. Mitch, what do you think?
No, I think that's giving a cop out to the players. I understand that well, Bickler agrees with me. Just for. But he's just for the record, philosophy. I think in terms of the fact that defending is not as much of a priority as it used to be. I don't think like it's man versus zone kind of like mentality within the defending. I'm assuming he refers to, and I agree to that if that is what he's talking about. Players are more focused on what I can do creative, what I can do going forward, and nobody as much takes pride in, like in the good old days, defending and being a defender. You know what I mean? And I think with like Trent and stuff, I think that's giving a cop out. I mean, I understand with like set pieces and stuff like that, the zonal marking versus man marking. I understand that part of it, but the areas that I have an issue with Trent is it's not like he's covering a zone, and it's not a zone that you cover in that instance. If the ball is out wide, I mean, you check your shoulder, and if a dude is there, you cover that dude. You don't say, okay, I'm going to be.
What I'm saying is though that we know that because that's what we were brought up to do. But modern players are not brought up to do that. They're brought up to square up to the field and then watch the ball. So they're never aware of like what happens behind, because this has been happening with Liverpool defenses since Rodgers' time.
When did this change though? I mean, I
will tell you exactly when it changed.
Else is doing it. It's just transmitted.
No. I'll tell you exactly when it happened. And the UEFA courses, it happened in the year 2002. That's when they switched to all zonal defending as how they were educating coaches. Because I was on the courses at that point, and that's when they were saying, you know, everything is going to be zonal now. Trevor's camera's drunk. But I think you're right in that it should be on the player to know that's. But what I'm saying is, do you think it's maybe like they're not taught that anymore? It's not something that's taught to players. If we go by how UEFA courses are going, it's literally you mark the area in relation to the ball and not in relation to the players, which is what we were brought up to do, which is why our generation were the best defenders ever.
It partially instinct too? I mean, same thing as going attacking. Some stuff is anticipation, seeing things on the field, like, visualizing runs before they even happen and stuff. And I feel like defending is kind of like the same thing where, I mean, some of it is instinct too. If that ball is out wide and you're playing back, you see somebody, I mean, you have to check your shoulder. I mean, that's just, I feel like that's basic soccer. That,
it is for us. I just want to give Bickler credit for calling it the baggy Umbros, because that was my generation, was the baggy Umbros. Well done, Bickler. Specifically that brand.
But I think, here's the thing. There are still players doing it really well. So where are those guys learning it from?
Well, I will say this. In Eastern Europe, there still is a trait towards man marking for the younger ages, which is why a lot of those defenders make their way into Italy. If you look at like the Italian teams and their makeup, they always seem to have an awful lot of East European defenders. Because I know at least in the Czech Republic and those former countries, there was a lot of man marking and sweeper that gets laughed at in American coaching, but that was always still a thing, which is, I think, why if you remember, Lovren was very good at that 1-to-1 mark, and he just was hopeless at the zonal defending when there was space around him. And Skirtle was the same. He was very good at the 1-to-1 mark, and especially if it was in the box and he wanted that attacker's jersey, he was really good at that one.
Because I think that's when it becomes more like defensive instinct and habit of defending and experience of defending. When it's like the zonal thing and you have to cover an area, I think there's like more thinking involved and more like habits involved. And if you don't have that in the upbringing, it's kind of hard to. That's like you learn. The other stuff is kind of like becomes a habit of like defending. So I hear you there.
Trevor, now that we have you back, now that your camera is not drunk on Wild Irish Rose anymore, here's my question going into Tuesday. If Darwin Núñez's injury is particularly serious, who do we replace him with for Tuesday?
I'd go for the Champions League. I'd definitely go Jota to start and then Bobby off the bench. As much as Bobby in the Champions League has that pedigree, I feel that he works better at this stage of his career as a super sub, and he just kind of keeps everything calm in that regard. And then that's where I think he would serve us best. And that's where I'm going to leave us at, because this music is destroying me, and my car was just not giving me the proper connection capabilities. So I'm going to bid you fine fellas adieu and then be on my way.
Okay, Trevor, we'll talk to you during the week. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You guys as well. Up the fucking Reds.
Take it easy.
So on that note, just on the attack there, Timuchin, how did you think Salah performed? It seemed sometimes to me he was trying too hard, and then other times not trying hard enough, because there was goals in there for him, but it was almost like he was trying to create them for other people rather than be a bit selfish, do you think?
Yeah, it's like he got caught in the middle, didn't he? Like the other two get the goals. It's almost like, yep, let me get 1-2. Then it was like, you know what, this creating is fine and dandy too. I think maybe he sees the bigger picture that, these guys like Gakpo, Núñez getting in their scoring rhythm only helps Mo, because only creates more space for him. I mean, you could see today. That's why I hope his injury is not bad. I mean, you saw his finishing, so it was good to get him the goal. But aside from that, you can see the scare he puts on defenders, and that's huge on the other opposite side, something we did not have the first few months, I feel like, of the season. So it's, without Diaz being in there and no Mane, there was nothing like really scaring people on the left. So you can kind of like, focus a lot more on Mo. I think this helps Mo a lot, having Núñez on the left. We always talked about, how come Núñez not in the middle and Gakpo on the left kind of thing. And I think like the more you see this, the more you're like, this is probably why. And not to mention, it kind of lets Gakpo kind of sometimes slide wide where it naturally would slide. And then it enables Núñez to cut in where he might sometimes naturally might come in. So it creates a lot of open space for Mo. I thought Mo did well today. Yeah, he could have probably gotten a couple really, or at least made a better effort at it. Like the shot that was like wide open, I think he puts that in a corner. At least like put it in a corner as opposed to like straight up the middle or something like that. But I have no complaints in terms of overall efforts that he puts in. I think you see that as he gets more space. We were talking in the pre-match when, Hendo is there and he's fed the ball a lot earlier and he has that space. He can still be a guy, even if he doesn't create a lot, he scares people. And that's sometimes what you need. I always thought today we sometimes should have probably played that ball behind a lot more against Burns, as opposed to having Burns, who was twice like he can probably carry Mo and go up for the header at the same time. So sometimes we were force feeding it in the air. I don't think that was a smart move. But when you kept it on the ground, when you put it behind Burns, that's when he became dangerous.
In terms of Gakpo, I mean, he played another good game, I thought, today. I thought his goal was fantastic. It was like perfectly timed all around. But we are looking at the future now, aren't we? After months of like debating where we're going with this team, at least him and Núñez are giving us a glimpse into what the future could look like, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, that's nice to see. I think, especially for him, because we were talking about it, right? Like the first goal, it's just a tap in, but it kind of like opens up the floodgates. And then today is like a beautifully put together goal, like in terms of like how it was created. Nice finish, great run. And more importantly, it felt like there's something happening up there where they're seeing each other's runs before it happened, because you got to kind of anticipate that as Mo before it happens. Otherwise, he's off. I mean, he was really close even then. So those are definitely things nice to see. That's why I'm hoping Nunes' injury is not serious, because I think he's a key part of that in terms of the space he creates, because the worry he gives. So that'll be nice to see if he can come back and keep doing that. Hopefully that injury, I initially thought he was kind of like semi-faking it, so that, you know, no potential red card or something like that, kind of an ordeal, because I think he could have pulled that foot away. I know it wasn't intentional or anything like that, but he just let it happen almost. And I think he kind of knew that. I thought he was kind of like, oh, I'm hurt too. But you see him sprinting afterwards, so you feel like, well, it's not, maybe not that bad. So I hope it was just precaution that we took him out, because he's a key piece to this.
And we talked about the Jota and Firmino subs. I thought also Harvey Elliott did himself, gave a good account of himself when he came on. But what I was thinking with the Henderson Milner sub is we're really going to miss Milner when he's gone, aren't we? Because he calms things down and puts some really timely interceptions high up the field, and nice beefy tackles at that as well.
Dude,
and we don't really have any. We really don't have anybody who does that right now, do we?
No, right? I mean, but there's not a lot of players. I guess we don't have it. Like some teams have that defensive midfielder who is like a tackler / butcher. Like, you know, he's going to get you or the ball, and that's how it rolls kind of thing. I mean, they were all clean tackles today, but I mean, they were crunching tackles, kind of like old school, like 10, 15 years ago, where that you saw that stuff all over the place. I feel like players are a little afraid now, because if you're a split second late, that can result in a red card now these days. So, and you see how many freaking yellows like Milner gets. What I liked about Milner after he came back is he was one of the few that could say, okay, back to control, and then like rotate the ball and stuff. I think we did not do enough of that today. Credit to Newcastle. At times they didn't let us do it, but I think the subs were going to go both ways, right? It's good to have those fresh legs against a team that was already down to 10. But at the same time, you're getting these guys in who want to come in and do stuff and, you know, attack and all that, which is nice. But at the same time, that kind of took away from our control, I felt, and the need to control the game and close it out and stuff. Whereas the guys, if they've been there all game, they kind of like go with a bit more with the flow. We needed the changes, and it did add. I mean, I think like, you know, Bickler was saying, and I was telling him on the Discord channel, that it's nice to bring, you know, quality off the bench and not just a pair of fresh legs with a not like maybe not top peak quality attached to it. So that was nice to see. But I felt Milner was the only one who was like stopping the action and saying, nope, it's control time, and then like circle the ball again. And you need that. And the crunching tackles, you need that as well. I think it's some. Because when you take Henderson out and Fabinho not being his regular Fabinho, not to mention playing with a yellow, I think that's what we were missing in the middle of the field. It's some like beef, because, you know, Elliott is not going to give you that. But Setic, I think that's his only weakness right now. He's a tackler, but not physical. And those are like two different things. So I think it was good to have Milner there. He'll play for another 2-3 years. Don't you worry about it.
In terms, just to flip it before we go, in terms of Newcastle, my feeling, as I said before, is that, you know, that they may have hit their peak already, but also I didn't even think of it at the time, but it came up during the game. Do you think they maybe have their eye on that cup final next weekend, because they haven't won a trophy in so long? It would be such a big thing for the Newcastle fans to win that League Cup. It's against United, isn't it?
It is against United.
So it's a big.
That was the only bad thing about the Pope red card, I thought.
Well, I mean, it's Man United. They'll probably put Harry Maguire up front, so Newcastle will be safe for a while. But do you think that maybe, you know, that was probably on their mind a little bit, because he took Joe Linton off fairly quickly, if I remember. Once he got that little injury that he felt was okay, but obviously Eddie Howe wants to preserve him, so maybe they had that on their minds. Or is this the beginning of the downslide for Newcastle?
I mean, they have been on the downslide for a while. I think if they were on a roll and, you know, we had this, you could say it was probably like they were looking ahead and not focusing as much. And I'm sure there's still a little bit of that. I'm sure there's the talk in Newcastle because, yeah, it is like silverware that they haven't had a chance to get to for a while, but they've been in this slide for quite some time. And I think, when we were chatting, we were talking about how they have not had a lot of injury issues and they are starting to. And I think that kind of like impacts things. And you know how this goes when you start the season, especially when you're a team who has not done well normally, and suddenly things are going well. There's like a momentum building, but then when that starts kind of like stuttering, it kind of gets stale after a while. That initial burst and the energy and the momentum is gone, and then you sprinkle a little bit of injuries in there. It can kind of take a toll on his team. We'll see how they come out of this final. We kind of screwed them over pretty good, I think. But you never know. That'll be a great story if Karius comes in and wins like the cup final in a ridiculous save or in penalties or something like that. That would be some story. And honestly, like I have nothing against Karius. I know, like he did what he did, but it would be a good redemption story for him at the same time too.
So for back to Liverpool before we go, looking ahead to Tuesday, would you keep the same team that started today, or would you plug in Matip for Gomez and maybe Keita for Bajcetic going against Real Madrid, or did they do enough today, assuming Nunez isn't injured seriously?
Yeah, if Nunez is going, I keep it exactly the same. And I think being able to sub and do those 4 subs really helps that, especially like for a player like Henderson and Bajcetic and stuff. I still start Gomez purely, and I think that's why today it was the right decision as well for speed. And you're going to have Vinicius on the left-hand side there going against Trent. So you need an extra person with speed over there that Gomez gives you, and Matip does not, especially his turning speed is not what it used to be. So I do still stick with Gomez. And I think, yeah, if Nunez is healthy, I think you just kind of like roll out the starting 11 who's looks like is gaining a rhythm, and we saw today that it enables you to bring some quality off the bench when needed. So I would stick with this lineup.
And then just kind of in terms of the bench for next Tuesday, here's the question that I'm probably sure is on every Liverpool fan's lips worldwide. Will we ever see Arthur Milo? Not even on the field, just see him.
Yeah, you might just see him at best. Yeah, that's probably what I don't know, because that's the problem. Like now you lost all these, like you're out of all these cups where you would probably see more of him so that he can rest others, but you're not. And I think, it has only helped Bajcetic kind of make a name for himself and carve out a spot. He made the most out of it. So, yeah, I don't know. Unless you see him in like some garbage time for the last 5 minutes. I'd like to, on a day like today, maybe Fabinho, who's on a yellow, you take him out just to be on the safe side or something like that. But I think that was a low move wasted. I think he would have done well if he wasn't injured, to be honest with you. I don't think it was like a totally dumb move. It just didn't pan out with the injury, obviously. But then again, you are getting a guy with an injury history, so...
I think he would have done well if he wasn't Arthur Milo. That's what I think.
Or that. If his name wasn't Arthur. Yeah, no, like I say, I think style-wise, he would have done well and he would have fit in. And I think it would be what we kind of like needed in that midfield, especially when we were hurting in that midfield. But with the injury and stuff, and now he's coming back at a time where, you get Henderson back, Fabinho trying to get back. You have Bajcetic coming up, and we still have like Keita, Elliott, and stuff like that. So I don't know if we're gonna see a lot of your boy.
I don't think he
or my boy Ox on that matter. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. But just remains to be said. I think it's a fantastic weekend for us. 6-pointer today, as you said. We're heading back into the right direction. We hope. Maybe maybe tighter performances, but we're certainly on the right track. Better than we were before. And then it just remains to say for everybody, make sure you're on a Discord channel. Make sure you're liking and subscribing on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, the US Postal Service, FedEx, whatever you need to do to get our message across. And make sure you're sharing the pages with your friends. People. Yeah, we want more fans. because the Thursday guys are so great and handsome, and the Monday guys are so old and negative. That's something I read on one of the comments. I'm not sure.
Well, what were you referring to us earlier? The elder statesman. Yes. The
elder statesman.
Hosted by elder statesman.
But we also have the Monday, the morning coffees on Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. So if you're
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'll be Monday morning with our very own Polish prince, and we'll probably take a look at like other weekend news, and then obviously take a kind of peek at Tuesday too, I'm sure.
Yeah, if you're a late riser or on third shift and just getting back home, perfect way to end or start your day, whichever is the case. But as always, follow us, like us, and listen to us on Spotify as well, because we're there too. We're like a virus.
We're
infecting every area of Liverpool Football Club support. Just ready to say thank you to Muchin, and thank you everybody for the comments. We get to have a pleasant weekend and hopefully laugh at Manchester United tomorrow. Or Monday, whenever they're playing. It doesn't matter. As long as they lose, it's all good.
Take care.
Take care, everybody. Peace out.